We all know the Baltimore Ravens need to upgrade their offensive line this offseason, and a former NFL offensive lineman gave his input into what Baltimore needs to do at the position.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Ostreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody for being here on this bonus edition episode here on Saturday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. Thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners. If you're somewhere in the middle, thank you as well. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage here for you. And on today's show, we're going to be talking about a former NFL offensive lineman giving his input on the future of the Ravens offensive line and what they need to do at that position this offseason. We'll also get into more Jesse Minter hires. There were a lot of them on Friday, so we'll talk about that. And then finally, we're going to get into the end of our Nick Moore interview. I actually wanted to play this as its own segment. So Nick and I talked earlier in the week, and I wanted to save what he had to say about Randy Brown and Chris Horton in the special teams unit for its own segment, and it worked out, and I could do that today. So I'm going to play that from Nick, and we're going to go back and listen to what Nick has to say about that. But appreciate everybody again for being here. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. All right, let's talk about this. Geoff Schwartz, former NFL offensive lineman of 8 years, went on the Ryan Ripken show, and he talked a lot about the state of the Ravens offensive line and what happened last year, what they have already done this offseason, and what they need to do as the offseason continues. He made a really big point about Dwayne Ledford. He said, quote, "The number one thing they did is they got a really good offensive line coach. Ledford is incredible. Came from Atlanta. They were good for so many years in Atlanta, and the way he's able to draft and develop guys is important because you're not going to find a lot of guys often in free agency. You might find guys via trade." And then Schwartz went on and talked about Chicago and how they traded for, a couple of their guys, Joe Thuney, for example. We've seen that too, where, Trent Williams gets traded, Laremy Tunsil gets traded, for the Ravens, Orlando Brown Jr., right? He got traded. Like offensive linemen, you can make those big swings, but it is interesting the perspective on the O-line with free agency. But he also went on and said the ability to draft and develop is hugely important. That's a position where that's a way to save money on your team, and a lot of premium offensive linemen just do not hit free agency. He continued and said, quote, "Number one thing is bringing Linderbaum back, which is going to be expensive because the Chargers are going to probably pay as much as they can to get him, and then just getting better players overall." So look, this is like a 3-step plan from Geoff Schwartz that I can get behind. Step 1 is already complete, right? You got a new offensive line coach in the building, and Dwayne Ledford, who, again, coming from Atlanta, being able to work his run game coordination in there and some of the things they were able to do. Again, Atlanta's offensive line has been a really good unit, and last year they dealt with some pretty brutal injuries to really good players on that line. The Atlanta run game did its thing, and you saw a lot of metrics and stats to back that up. Were they the best run offense in the league? No, but they were up there despite what they went through. So Ledford coming in, and hopefully with an influx of talent coming in on that offensive line, you would hope that they replace both guys at the guard positions. And I think that's what Geoff Schwartz is alluding to here, is like, look, you got to bring Linderbaum back, which is a big deal, and it is expensive. Creed Humphrey right now makes the most amount of money per year for centers at $18 million per season. The Ravens obviously declined Linderbaum's 5th-year option, and I think it was the correct decision, assuming they do bring him back, because, again, like, they would have reset the center market by like $5 or $6 million or whatever it was going to be, and they would have then had to compete against themselves. They were essentially going to compete against themselves had they done that. So I get it from an optics perspective of why, but it turns into an absolutely catastrophic decision if the Ravens end up letting him go. And, I think at this point, you really need to start moving with those negotiations. I would hope by the time free agency starts, you get Linderbaum. And something that Schwartz mentioned is, like, he mentioned the Chargers, but there are going to be a lot of other teams that are going to be vying for Linderbaum's services. We talked about this a lot yesterday on the show. I've talked about this a lot over the last couple of weeks on this show. Is Linderbaum is your most important free agent, and it is not close. I'm Isaiah Likely, I'm kind of factoring that out at this point because of the Mark Andrews extension. I would love to have Likely back on this team, but again, I just feel like they're going to prioritize Kohler at this point. Doesn't feel like Likely's coming back. Maybe it happens, but I'm doubting it. But for Linderbaum, he is a guy at the center position that, again, like they have really been looking for that premium center guy that they can plug and play, like 10, 12, 15-year starter. Linderbaum, I believe, is that at the NFL level. And they were cycling through guys really since Matt Burke retired. Jeremy Zuta's and Ryan Jensen's and Matt Skura's. McCary got a shot there. Like they were looking for that guy, and they have it now. So look, the reports are that Linderbaum is going to get over $18 million per season, which would make him the highest paid center in the NFL. I am totally fine with the Ravens doing that. Give him 19, give him 20. Let's get crazy, give him 21. Do that. But you just can't let this thing get to free agency because, as I've said, like we saw with Ronnie Stanley last year, the Patriots were reportedly interested. The Chiefs were reportedly interested. If they let Stanley get to free agency, that price would have gone up. So that 19, 20, 21 for Linderbaum, the Giants and Harbaugh are reportedly going to be interested in him. There are other teams that want Linderbaum as well. Like that number is going to go up and up and up if they allow Linderbaum to hit free agency. So I'm in lockstep with Geoff Schwartz here on his offensive line plan. And then it's obviously getting better players in. So again, like Stanley to me, he's safe. Roger Rosengarten, he's safe. Linderbaum, assuming he's back, like that's your center. But at the guard positions, there is such a low bar being set. And again, like Geoff is correct in the fact that like normally, not all the time, but normally a lot of the big time offensive linemen don't hit free agency. And I actually went and I looked at the free agents on the market this offseason. Rasheed Walker, and this is, I'm sorting this by Spotrac market value projections. So Rasheed Walker is projected at $20.2 million. He leads everybody, the tackle from the Packers. And they have a couple of centers, and David Edwards, Linderbaum, and Connor McGovern, all three of those guys projected in that 19 to 16. Actually, David Edwards, well, I guess guard. David Edwards is a guard, then Linderbaum and McGovern. But, I think it's interesting because Edwards is projected at about $20 million. Then Linderbaum is about 17.7, and McGovern is about 16.24. Then it's guys like Braden Smith and Cam Robinson. Got veterans like Joel Bitonio and Wyatt Teller from Cleveland, for example. Elijah Vera Tucker, who's dealt with injuries. He's a guy that could potentially get some money. Zion Johnson from the Chargers. Then you got other vets like former Raven guys like Zeitler's a free agent this year. John Simpson is back on the free agent market. But again, like there isn't, like in my opinion, Walker and Linderbaum, and you can throw Edwards in this conversation. But like those are the top three guys, and then there is a bit of a drop off after that. So I think that looking to the trade market is pretty smart for that position. Now, again, I don't know who that would be. I don't have names right now, but there are a couple of trades that happen where you're like, oh, like when Joe Thuney got traded from the Chiefs, you're like, yeah, they have to clear some cap out, but whoa. So like if they could get a guy like that in the building at the guard position, like a veteran guy, and maybe that does come by way of like, hey, you sign a mid-level guard in free agency and then you draft a guy in the first round to put there, the second round to put there. That's another viable option. But to me, you got to get an upgrade or two or probably three on the offensive lineman, depending on what happens with Linderbaum. If Linderbaum resigns, then it's two. If he doesn't, then it's three. But again, you just don't want to create another hole on your team when you have a very easy way to not make that hole on your team. So that's a big thing. Schwartz also talked about Daniel Falele and just the mentality of being an offensive lineman in general. And he kind of related it back to Baltimore's situation where he said, quote, you're protecting the guy who's making all the money for your team. And then for the Ravens, he said, quote, you're protecting Lamar Jackson. There's a lot of pressure making sure that guy doesn't get killed. Nothing really went well for Baltimore. Injuries played a big part of that. When things start snowballing, it's hard to get them to turn around quickly. He did mention like you have to have some of that like mental toughness as an offensive lineman, and him having that experience and, playing at the position and playing in the NFL, like he understands that better than anybody. So I thought it was interesting. And again, like we saw for the offensive line in Falele at times, like again, that Patriots and Packers games, that back-to-back stretch, I'm like, oh, this offensive line is so back. The problem is that it was like 3 weeks before the season ended, and there was like a 3-month stretch of just awful play. And then in Pittsburgh, it was, yeah. But they need to get better there, and I'm very intrigued to see how they do that. But I think no one's going to really be sleeping well in Baltimore until a notification that Daniel Falele has signed somewhere else hits. I think that's going to be the big thing for a lot of people with that offensive line. But look, I mean, it's the reality of the situation, right? Like, they've completed step one of this plan, in my opinion. Step two is bringing back Linderbaum, and then getting better players overall. Yes. I mean, it's a very general, vague thing, like okay, yeah, that's, yeah, duh. But no, it's true. Where could it be via trade? Could it be via free agency? I think it's perspective of a couple of different things, especially surrounding Ledford. And coming up in the second part of the show, round out what Geoff Schwartz said about the Ravens and about the offense and what it could mean for some of the schemes and systems that the Ravens could use there. And also we'll get into more Jesse Minter hires. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. First, the show is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network nearby and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, makes you feel comfortable, and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. You can see real-time availability and book instantly. No phone calls, no waiting on hold. You can also read verified patient reviews so you feel confident choosing a doctor you'll actually like. Stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. And the show is brought to you by Indeed. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for. Trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posted on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Now, if I needed to hire someone for this show, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job posted, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Moving along on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this bonus Saturday edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content here for you. We have the regular show Monday through Friday at 6 a.m. Eastern time, but we also have bonus episodes like this on the weekends when the headlines permit. And we have had a lot of headlines recently, so we've had a lot of bonus episodes, but we also have instant reactions after every single piece of Ravens big news and after games during the season. We also have watch-alongs during the games, during the year, plus the Locked On Ravens squad show twice a week. Myself, Sam Njoku, former Ravens receiver Kadri Ismail, chop it up twice a week at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays and Wednesdays. And also the Everyday Club is live on Locked On Ravens. You get some add-on content like weekly Q&As. You got the one-on-one text conversation with me, access to a Discord server, and other things as well. You can find that link in the description below as well on the Locked On website on the Locked On Ravens page. But all right, let's round out our conversation about what Geoff Schwartz was talking about with this Ravens offensive line and offense in general, because then the conversation shifted over to Declan Doyle. And, you know, Geoff Schwartz admitted and said that it's a risky move that the Ravens made for Declan Doyle. But when asked about Ben Johnson's run schemes, he said they're fantastic, and talked a little bit about what he believes the future of the offense moving forward is, or what it should be. And he said, quote, "The offense for so many years was around Lamar's ability to run the football. I think you have to take that out of the offense now. The offense has to be built traditionally. If you want to supplement a little with Lamar's legs, go ahead. But this hire to me signals moving away from the RPO, the run zone read game." And this is interesting to me. And again, like I definitely understand it. And it's going to be a different offense. Like, I don't think we're going to see as much. And again, like, there were a lot of times because, Geoff also mentioned the fact that, like, oh, last season, people were calling for Tyler Huntley to stay in at quarterback when Lamar was back because, oh, the offense runs better with him because, Huntley's healthier than Lamar, which, again, I thought was ridiculous in the first place. But those were real conversations that were happening in the fan base. But that was predicated on the fact that, like, Lamar just couldn't use his legs like we had been accustomed to seeing. But again, like, Lamar's not just a runner. He's so good with his arm and he's so good with his legs. It's both things. But now with Declan Doyle coming in and some of the stuff Chicago did, again, you're going to have a lot of different run looks. You're going to have play action, a lot of heavy wide receiver sets. Like, those are things that they do. I'm really intrigued by that. And that probably does mean, like, yeah, in terms of RPOs on like heavy with that stuff, probably going to be not, I don't think it's going to be completely phased out, but I think you're going to see a lot more of like Lamar in the shotgun and like, regular stuff. And again, it's something that, like, when you're talking about like traditional offense, I don't want to box anybody into that category because, again, like, I personally believe there's no right or wrong way to build an offense in terms of like, oh, if you don't do things X, Y, Z, it's not going to work. Like, the Ravens broke a lot of that with Lamar Jackson, and they built an offense around him that was not traditional. And they have had a lot of success with that non-traditional offense because, Lamar Jackson is such a spectacular player, but, he's somebody that, like, you build that offense around Lamar because you know that Lamar can do that. But Lamar can also do a lot of other different things that, like, you put Lamar in different systems and he can do it. Like, I don't want to box Lamar into those conversations of like, oh, you put Lamar in a different offense and he's going to just flounder. No, Lamar is, again, like a guy that is top of his game, one of the best in the league, if not the best in the league, which I do believe. But I mean, he's a guy that you can ask to do a lot of things. You can ask him to do almost anything and he can do it, whether it be in a run heavy system, a pass heavy system. I'm not going to box Lamar into just saying, oh, he's only this like non-traditional quarterback. No, he's a quarterback that has defined a lot of different standards over the course of his time. And he has made a lot of things. Oh, hey, that's a cool thing. Why don't we try to do that? Right. Lamar has set those standards, which I think is really, really awesome. But again, I agree with Geoff in terms of like, it's going to be a different style of offense. And we're going to still see a lot of creativity from Declan Doyle, creativity from Dwayne Ledford in the run game. I don't think they're going to completely abandon that. It's probably going to be somewhere in the middle, right, of what Baltimore has done over the course of Lamar Jackson's career up to this point to now bringing in a Declan Doyle with a new system, new coaching staff and everything, where you're going to see different positions be, favored more on the offensive line or on the wide receiver department or running back or wherever you want to say. Maybe things are less favored, like fullback potentially. I feel like fullback is probably on the way out in Baltimore now with this new system. So it's going to be different in a lot of different ways. But I think that Lamar's running ability is too good just to take out of your offense completely. So again, like, Lamar is a quarterback. He's a thrower of the football. He has said that he would prefer to throw rather than run, which, again, we're going to see a lot more of that. But again, his legs make him incredible, much like his arm does. He's the whole package, right? He's an incredible thrower of the football. He's an incredible runner of the football. And, if you ask Lamar to sit back there and throw 35 times, he's probably going to put up some pretty good numbers. Why? Well, hey, we've seen it a lot. So, it's like he's already proven he can do it. So any system you put Lamar in, I think he can thrive in, and I'm excited to see what they do there. Jesse Minter, man, this staff just continues to hustle and bustle in terms of getting these guys hired and ready to go. Now we got some reports that, first from Aaron Wilson, the Chuck Pagano, Ravens senior defensive assistant, secondary coach, he will not be staying on with the Ravens. He obviously joined more so for John Harbaugh. So, that makes a lot of sense there. But the Ravens, they actually are expected to hire, according to Matt Zennett's, Chargers offensive pass game coordinator Marcus Brady. Now that name might seem familiar to some people, where he actually, CFL guy, right? He played in the Canadian Football League for a decent amount of time. He started up in 2002 and played till 2009, and then got to start coaching in the CFL, but then went to the Indianapolis Colts as their assistant quarterback coach, and then was promoted to offensive coordinator after a while. Then he went to Philadelphia. Then in Los Angeles, he went with Jim Harbaugh. So he was on Jesse Minter's staff for the past 2 seasons. Working with Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, et cetera. It's a good a good body of work so far. Now, there are going to be some interesting things because we know in that Los Angeles offense, Greg Roman was the offensive coordinator. So how many of those ideas, especially in the pass game, is he bringing over to Baltimore? Hopefully not the Greg Roman stuff. But again, Marcus Brady's his own guys. He has his own ideas. All right, I saw a lot of that. Oh, he's just going to be Greg Roman. No, Marcus Brady is Marcus Brady. So I have maybe a little more confidence in this hire than some people do. Again, it's not like my favorite hire they made. But again, when you're looking at him, and I don't think that the role itself has been defined for him yet. So again, you're bringing in guys like Joe Lombardi and now Marcus Brady experience because you do have a younger guy at offensive coordinator in Declan Doyle. Does not hurt to have all that experience around him, which again, I do really, really like. Now, another interesting hire, because again, these just started coming in hot. Duke's Harlan Bauer is going to be the Ravens' new outside linebackers coach, and he is coming from another college program. So a lot of college guys coming in to Baltimore. Jesse Minter tapping into that college pipeline. So I'm really interested to see how this works. Now, he's been at Duke since 2022, and he coached Vincent Anthony Jr. and Wesley Williams in 2025. Both of those are all ACC defensive ends. This is an interesting one. Aeneas Peebles is already fired up about it. He said Big Bauer. So, there already is that. Where when you look at Harlan Bauer and his resume, just, since everything, again, I mentioned he was at Duke in 2022 on, but he spent a couple of years with Aeneas Peebles. So there is that connection already. He did coach for a season at Texas A&M as a defensive analyst where he overlapped with Tyler Santucci, and he's also been at South Alabama, Notre Dame, Central Arkansas, Troy, Rutgers, Murray State, Georgia Military College. So he's been everywhere. Now, this is the fifth college coach that Jesse Minter has reportedly hired. You got Mike Mickens over from Notre Dame, Lou Esposito from Michigan, PJ Volker from Navy, and Miles Taylor from Nebraska. So the youth is there, or not necessarily youth, but I guess people coming from guys who are coaching youth in college. But I think it's interesting because I don't want to dismiss these guys because they're college coaches. Like, I think that'd be very wrong of me to do. Like, I'm excited about a hire like this. And, you have all this different experience, guys who have legit resumes, guys who have been in a lot of different areas. Again, like Vincent Anthony Jr. had 13 tackles for loss and 7.5 sacks for the Duke Blue Devils last season. So I like it. Again, you can also get inside looks at some of these college programs with these guys. Not that they don't have that already with scouts and connections and whatnot, but it's another factor in there. And then after that, it was reported that the Ravens are expected to hire Broncos pass game specialist Zach Grossi as their tight ends coach. He's been with Denver for the last 4 seasons. Broncos ranked 10th in the NFL in total offense this year. He also overcame cancer to return to Denver staff in 2025. So a really awesome story there. Another Denver connection where, again, you hear that he's in Denver for the past 4 seasons. Well, then he did overlap with Declan Doyle. So Doyle, who was the tight ends coach in Denver, ends up now hiring his tight ends coach from Denver. So that's a really cool factor of it because we know that Doyle was with the Broncos for a decent amount of time under Sean Payton. 2023 is when he started. So it wasn't like a crazy amount of time. I mean, it was only a couple of years, but he did overlap with Grossi there. So you're just seeing these connections and these pipelines keep coming down. And that to me is really, really cool. Though, in the final part of the show, we will dive into what Nick Moore had to say about Randy Brown staying, Chris Horton leaving, and special teams for the Ravens. So be sure to stay tuned. Plenty coming up on the show. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. And this show is brought to you by Home Chef. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules. Having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Meals come ready to fit your schedule, 30-minute recipes, oven-ready trays, or quick lunches. There are over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. Recipes are simple but feel elevated, even restaurant quality, with dishes co-created by chefs like Gordon Ramsay. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering my listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Continuing on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher is still here with you on the Saturday bonus edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here again and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. If you have a friend or a family member who is a Ravens fan or just wants some daily Ravens coverage, be sure to send them our way over here on Locked On Ravens. We have great communities, video form, audio form, social media. You can follow me over on social media at CashRecord34 on Twitter, Instagram, the whole 9 yards. We're going to dive into the last part of our conversation with Nick Moore. I decided I wanted to use this instead of on the actual interview. I wanted to use it as its own segment, and this episode today gives me a chance to do that. Nick talked about Randy Brown, Chris Horton, and special teams in general. I thought his answer was really awesome. So without any further ado, let's get into what Nick had to say. I do want to give you an opportunity to say a quick thing or two about Randy Brown staying on, and maybe if you have anything to say about Chris Horton leaving. You know, those are two guys that very influential in the special teams world for you and that team. So Randy staying on, Chris moving on. Is there anything you want to say about those two guys?
Yeah, I wish Chris the absolute best. He's very close. I'm very close with Chris and his family. I know at the end of the day, Chris has, he wants to become a head coach in the National Football League. I think that this is the next step for him to get there as the assistant head coach of the Giants. Obviously, he worked with John for a long time here in Baltimore. Hate to see him leave because, in my opinion, he is the best special teams coordinator in the National Football League. I learned so much from him and had such a great connection with him that he will be missed for sure. I wish him nothing but the best, except for when they play the Ravens. I hope we get the better of them. But I think he's going to continue to do the things that he's done. He's going to be a great coach for a long, long time. And I wish nothing but the best. And when I signed my contract back here right before the end of the season, there was a lot of things on the fence. There was obviously murmurs going around the building and throughout the league about what could potentially happen in Baltimore, and I was unsure about what to do. And I got the offer that I wanted from the Ravens, and I ultimately, obviously, I accepted the offer. And Chris was the first person I talked to outside of my direct family and my agent. And I just said, Chris, I just want you to know that I just re-signed like right now, and I think they gave me everything I wanted, and this is the place I want to be. This is the best organization in football. I have so much respect of everybody here, and I've been here a long time. I don't want to move if I don't have to. And he just said to me that at the end of the day, Nick, you got to do what's best for you and your family, and you know what's best for you and your family, and that's all you can do. And for me, I hate to see him leave, but at the end of the day, I know he did what he had to do for him and his girls and his son. He did what was best for them, and that's, I'm happy for them. I'm excited for the future that he's going to have. He's going to have a great future. So I look forward to seeing what he's able to do. And if he becomes a head coach one day, who knows? Maybe he'll hire me as special teams coach.
Yeah, there you go.
So, you never
Let's
know.
go.
The door is never shut. He's still one of my closest friends. I talked to him. I haven't talked to him since he got the job. He called me after he got hired, but haven't talked to him last week or so. But I love the guy. We play golf together. My kids love his girls, love my kids. It's a great people all around. So that's enough on Chris. He's going to do great. Randy Brown, huge piece for us. I don't think Randy gets the credit he deserves. He is the pioneer of specialist coaches in the National Football League. I think he might be one of, if not the only specialist coach in the entire National Football League. The guy knows more about kicking, punting, and long snapping than just about anybody on the planet. He got the kicking combine, the specialist combine they do now at the combine. That's Randy's baby. He created that. He's been saying for a long time that we needed something separate for just the kicker, punter, and long snapper. Finally got that done. He's just been a pioneer in this space for such a long time that I just feel like having him with Tyler, with myself, I have a great relationship with Randy. He was the guy who believed in me coming out of college. He's the guy that gave me my second opportunity in the NFL, bringing me into Baltimore, giving me the opportunity that I have here, allowing, trusting me to take over for Morgan Cox after 11 seasons with Morgan, trusting me that I can continue to play at the same level as Morgan and do it in my own way. Like, I have nothing. I owe Randy, he's going to love me saying that out loud on a podcast. I owe Randy everything for giving me the opportunity that I have. Obviously,
Yeah.
I made the most of the opportunity that was given to me, but without Randy's help, there's no telling where I would be in this league. So being able to keep him, he's just such a, like, he's like he does his stuff. And he's so good at what he does. And I just love having him personally because he's like, I can spitball ideas off of him. He's a really good listener. He understands, there's nobody in the building who really gets the ins and outs of my job. Randy is by far the number one guy who knows the majority of it, but I can just bounce ideas off of him. He's a great mentor for kickers. I mean, he worked with Justin forever. He worked with Sam Cook for a long time. He's developed Will Lutz, all these guys, Graham Gano, it's got Hauschka. Like, there's so many guys in the league that have come through Baltimore that have worked with Randy Brown, whether it was David Akers when he was back in Philly. There's just a plethora of people that Randy has mentored and helped along the way. And these guys are having tremendous careers in the NFL. And Randy, he does not get the credit he deserves with that. And look what he was able to help, Jordan Stout accomplish this year. I want to give Jordan kudos, man. All pro bowler. Just I hope he's living it up right now at the Pro Bowl. He deserves every minute of that. The guy has battled his tail off for 4 years to get to where he's at. So I'm so happy for him. And hopefully we can bring him back. Having Randy helps in that case because he loves Jordan. And Jordan, he deserves to be paid. So I hope whatever comes for him, I hope he gets everything that he ever wanted. But having Randy there, it's just going to be huge. Tyler had a great rookie season. And then keeping that mentor the same for him, keeping that guy that Tyler can lean on when things get difficult. Obviously, with how the season ended for us, it was very difficult for us. But I know Randy will be able to work with Tyler throughout the offseason into training camp to get him ready to go for next season. And I just feel like our unit, the consistency, the performance that we've had at this unit for 20 years, going all the way back to 2006 when Sam Cook came in to the league. I think that Randy has been a major piece to that. And I'm just so glad that he's still here because he is very, very vital to our success in the kicking game. And as we know in this league, the kicking game is everything. Games are won and lost by field goals and extra points. And oh my God, what's the word I'm looking for? The field possession. Sorry. So I know how important, we all know how important that stuff is for the NFL, and Randy's just a huge piece for us. So kudos to Eric and the guys and Jesse for keeping him here because I think he's a very valuable resource for us to have, and I think it's gonna be great for us.
Nick is awesome. Be sure to go support him, follow him on Instagram, and of course, we have him on this show and the Locked On Ravens Squad show. He has been great. It's been really awesome to talk to him, get to know him, and be able to have him share his thoughts on this team and everything going on with the Ravens and the NFL. But appreciate everybody for being here. Again, that's all I have here today on Locked On Ravens. On the way up, be sure to like and subscribe button. in video form, and follow along and subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. Coming up, maybe a bonus episode tomorrow if there are headlines to talk about, but if not, we'll be back here on Monday with our regularly scheduled programming. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.